Alright everyone, we're back again with some more answers from Kubo's Klub Outside Q&A platform, and this time I think we've got ourselves a couple of fairly big hitters, one of which in particular really dives deep into a topic that was widely speculated upon even up until fairly recently. As such, we've got three to look at this time, as I think we'll be talking for a while about two of them as it is. I want to say a big thank you to everyone before we begin for the great reception to the last Klub Outside video. It's fantastic to finally find a format that really works for these smaller topics, and I appreciate the support and the feedback. So this time we'll be looking at questions relating to Shutara Senjumaru and her backstory, as well as the true nature of the power of the Yourself twins, who proved a very tumultuous subject of discussion in the first Quincy invasion, before wrapping up as we do with a light-hearted subject, this time on the cost of repairs in the Gotei barracks. Let's take a look. Back in chapter 517, when the Zero Division were first introduced, Kubo hinted at a past relationship between Mayuri Kurotsuchi and the Great Weaver Shutara Senjumaru. This led to, as you'd expect, a lot of speculation regarding both Senjumaru's potential former position in the Gotei 13 and even Mayuri's age, with people wondering if Senjumaru had been a previous captain of the 12th Division or if Mayuri was somehow over 1,000 years old. While the crux of Senjumaru's history is still unclear, Kubo confirmed in an older Q&A that Mayuri wasn't around 1,000 years ago, swiftly debunking that idea. And now, in a recent answer, Kubo has shed some light on how these two characters actually know each other, providing a tantalizing glimpse into Senjumaru's mysterious past. Thanks to daily Bleach scans, we have this answer regarding their past affiliation. Before Urahara created the Research and Development Institute, an unofficial group of scientist-inventors existed. Senjumaru was their leader, Mayuri was a part of it. This is very interesting on numerous levels. First of all, how did this unofficial group of scientist-inventors come to be? Do you have to be both a scientist and an inventor to gain access, or just one or the other? Clearly, Senjumaru attracted like-minded individuals to her side, including Mayuri, though I am surprised it seems as though he voluntarily chose to work under someone else, unless there's more at play here than we know, and considering we know very little, that's absolutely possible. He could have been strong-armed into it somehow. If they were an unofficial group, then they weren't sanctioned by the Gotei 13. Maybe they were perhaps working outside of the law. It's possible this is what attracted Mayuri to the group in the first place, the chance to tinker away on his projects without any ethical concerns. Not that being a part of the Gotei 13 really stopped him from doing that anyway, but this is a younger, maybe slightly less brash Mayuri we're talking about here. I have to admit, I am surprised the Gotei 13 seemingly never had any kind of official science branch until Kisuke came along, a mere 110 years prior to the start of Bleach itself. And speaking of Kisuke, did he join this group at all? It seems like exactly the sort of underground organisation Kisuke would relish being a part of, but then again, Kisuke is very much a man of the Gotei, always putting the Gotei first, even if he can be a bit of a rule breaker. Plus, at this point in the timeline, Kisuke is very much still an underling in the 2nd Division, or at least I assume so, depending on when this takes place, and so to me it seems like this isn't the sort of thing he would really do until he was unshackled come Turn Back the Pendulum and had that new position as captain in a new division. When Kisuke visits Mayuri in Turn Back the Pendulum, they're very much on a name basis, however. They know each other, and seemingly have for a while, as Mayuri even comments on Kisuke's recent promotion. It's highly possible then that the two of them did work together in some capacity, maybe under Senjumaru, in this unofficial inventors group. It seems a little harsh though, depending on the circumstances, that after the group is disbanded for whatever means, Mayuri ends up in the maggot's nest while Kisuke is left to roam free. It would be interesting if Senjumaru was seen as something of a visionary among the Shinigami. Clearly she's already invented the Shihakusho at this point, which is ubiquitous within the Seirete, so I wonder if some of these aspiring inventors simply wanted to work in her orbit. But what was this group up to? Were they developing inventions for the sake of the Senjumaru or for their own gain? I wonder if the scale mentioned in chapter 480, which can be translated I think as either the Sutra scale or more overtly the Shutara scale, was an invention of Senjumaru from this time. I believe it is confirmed to be, though I could be misremembering. Did Senjumaru's sudden promotion to the Zero Division cause the group to disband or be shut down? As mentioned earlier, we know that Mayuri ends up in the maggot's nest, and while technically only innocent people go to the maggot's nest, dangerous people who haven't yet committed any crimes but whose danger and a threat could potentially be turned into an asset, Mayuri was the only inmate kept in solitary confinement, likely due to how unpredictable and dangerous the Senjumaru believed him to be. So what was the precedent for that? While this ultimately is a fascinating piece of lore that does help to explain a bit of the relationship between these two characters, I feel like it is mostly useless fluff without more concrete information on Senjumaru herself. What role did she have in the Gotei 13 at the time, if any at all? Perhaps she was an outside influence, though personally I doubt it. I imagine the Gotei would have wanted to indoctrinate the woman who designed their uniforms, though it's possible she remained uninterested in actually joining up with them as part of the military. Senjumaru's dialogue in chapter 517 also kind of implies to me that she was a part of the Gotei 13, depending on translation, but she says it's true that security is a lot softer than when I was here, which to me indicates that she was a part of the organisation in some way. But that security line is now also intriguing too in its own way. Is she referring to the inventor group's security from back in the day, or simply the security of Mayuri's lab? It's interesting that Mayuri states that Senjumaru never did have much respect, but if she was the group's leader, then what was he expecting from her? Admittedly, Mayuri is absolutely the kind of guy who would easily take something as a personal slight, so it's not hard to see him feeling disrespected somehow back in the day. I wonder if Akon was with this group too. After all, we see him feverishly building something in the maggot's nest during Turn Back the Pendulum, and either Mayuri or Kisuke takes him, of everyone, with them when they leave. So I wonder if there's any past relationship between those characters or not. Akon is just a little kid at the time, so potentially not. That being said, this is the same place that locks up a little kid in the maggot's nest in the first place, so who's to say Akon wasn't a part of this inventors group to begin with? But I think that's all I really have to say regarding this answer right now. Hopefully Kubo is able to dive into Senjumaru's history a little more in the future, as I feel we're still missing crucial pieces of the puzzle that will help slot everything into place. Besides, this time, I've saved my favourite answer for next, and honestly, this one is kind of crazy. There's been an awful lot of discussion surrounding the power and strength of Sternritter Y, the yourself, Loyd, since his battle against Yamamoto at the apex of the first Quincy invasion. Loyd is tasked by Yhwach himself with stalling the head captain, tiring him out and forcing him to expend all of his energy while using bankai, before allowing the real Yhwach to swoop in and secure the victory in the end. After transforming into Yhwach to deceive Yamamoto, this is exactly what happens. Loyd completes his task before being, perhaps mercifully, killed by his king after his body is almost totally destroyed by Yamamoto. Loyd is one half of the Loyd twins, two Sternritter who share the same shrift, but with slightly differing abilities, and both of them are killed during the first invasion. At its core, the yourself allows the brothers to transform into someone else. As part of their ruse to defeat Yamamoto, Loyd becomes Yhwach, while Loyd's brother Loyd, yes it's a little confusing, transforms into Kenpachi Zaraki earlier in the battle, but is killed by him. In chapter 510, when the truth is revealed, Kubo details both Loyd and Loyd's powers and how their shrifts differ ever so slightly from one another. In the original chapter, Kubo states, "The older brother, Loyd with an L, could mimic another's powers and skills in addition to their appearance." The younger brother, Loyd with an R, could mimic another's memories and mind in addition to their appearance. So, to try and put it simply, Loyd became as strong as Kenpachi, while Loyd received all of Yhwach's memories, which allowed him to recognise deceased Sternritter like Hubert and Zeidritz during the fight with Yamamoto. Pretty simple, right? Well, not exactly. You see, the original chapter makes no mention whatsoever of Loyd becoming as strong as Yhwach. He only seemingly mimics his memories and mind, which led people to speculate just how innately powerful Loyd himself actually was. With seemingly no power boost attributed to him, was this random Sternritter really capable of pummeling Zaraki into a coma and withstanding Yamamoto's bankai for as long as he did? There were a lot of theories ranging from yes, he simply is one of the most powerful Sternritter and that's that, to no, Yhwach clearly boosted his power before the invasion. I myself even ranked Loyd at 9th overall a few years ago because it seemed like he really was that strong. However, as of this week, Kubo has delved into a bit more detail about these two and their powers, shining a bit more light on how they work, and while it clears up Loyd's power a bit, it also opens a whole new can of worms. This translation comes courtesy of M Shadows, like a lot of them do, so thank you as always. The question Kubo was asked reads as follows. Loyd, the younger brother, has the ability to replicate the memories and likeness of others, but why is he capable of using Yhwach's abilities and weapons? Did he inherit his elder brother's ability? Or perhaps Yhwach gave him some of his power? Or is there another reason? So clearly the person asking Kubo the question thought the same as everyone else in the community. How on earth was Loyd strong enough to go toe-to-toe with Yamamoto's bankai, even if he was pretty soundly beaten in the end? Well, Kubo's answer turns out to be quite illuminating. Kubo replies, the Loyd brothers can each fully copy either memory or power respectively, while everything else is copied in proportion of 70 to 80%. Just being able to copy memories or power wouldn't be of much use. Wow? So just like that, Kubo reveals an entirely new dimension to the power of the yourself, completely blowing this thing wide open. Both brothers can copy both power and mind. Kubo is right when he says just being able to copy memories or power probably wouldn't be of much use, but you ultimately can't blame us for thinking that was the case when that was what was explicitly said in chapter 510. But anyway, this puts everything into a new perspective. Starting with Loyd, this means he was battling Kenpachi at 100% of his power, meaning they really were on the same level, and as Kenpachi himself says, he simply had to get stronger than his copy in order to win. Now, this information is a little incomplete. What does power actually mean here? Did Loyd copy 100% of Kenpachi's combat prowess, the very thing he was placed on the list of special war potentials for, or just his immense Reiatsu? Or maybe even both? Because if Loyd only copied Kenpachi's Reiatsu, then it makes perfect sense to me that Kenpachi would outperform him in swordplay and take the win, killing Loyd. Though even then, I think Kenpachi would be probably considerably more injured than he actually was. I mean, just look at his battle with Neutra. He's stronger than the Espada, but gets thoroughly roughed up throughout, even coming close to dying. Apparently, though, he comes out of his fight with Loyd completely unscathed somehow. But I've got to be honest, knowing what we do now, my bigger question is, why on earth did Yhwach send Loyd to copy Kenpachi? That feels like an enormous waste of talent. The fact that Loyd can copy 100% of someone's power just like that potentially rockets him to nearly the top of the strongest Sternritter list. Hell, Loyd could have become as powerful as Yhwach or Yamamoto themselves. I know that Kenpachi is a special war power, so he's not a bad choice, but there are clearly some stronger people that you think you would target here. So yeah, knowing what we do, I can't help but think the Vandenreich had better options. Imagine if both Loyd and Loyd became Yamamoto. or if there were 3 Yhwach involved in the invasion, 2 of which were at 100% of their power. Honestly, this is craziness to me, and there's no denying that really both of the brothers were wasted a bit. But Loyd especially, I think, could have done a lot more damage if used better. Then we've got Loyd, who can copy 100% of a person's mind and memories, and as Kubo also revealed, 70 to 80% of their power, just as Loyd can do 70 to 80% of their mind. I've got to be honest, while we originally thought Loyd was clearly the more powerful of the 2 brothers, I can't help but feel Loyd has the better deal as far as the shrifts themselves go. I guess being able to copy someone's mind is pretty useful. I mean, it was used in an extremely situational way in the fight against Yamamoto, but maybe if you copied someone like Mayuri or Kisuke, you'd become as intelligent as them, which would be incredibly dangerous. But I feel like being able to copy 70 to 80% of their mind is generally speaking going to be good enough for almost all circumstances, while I'd rather the focus be on copying their power instead and getting 100% of that. I will say that I think this revelation puts the overall fight between Loyd and Yamamoto into a better perspective. Now we know that Bankai Yamamoto was essentially completely walking all over base Yhwach at roughly 80% of his power, which means Bankai Yamamoto would have totally dominated Yhwach in a fair fight during the first invasion, hence why Yhwach arranged for a plan to get one over on him instead. I honestly wonder, how far this goes for Yamamoto, and I felt for a while now that the community has been underrating him as of late. How much stronger is Yhwach by the time he faces Ichibei at the end of the second invasion prior to activating the Almighty? He has absorbed quite a few Sternritter souls, but we don't really know how much power that grants him. I wonder if Yamamoto in Bankai could still smack him around at that stage, and if so, I think this revelation does wonders for the head captain's credibility, not that it really needed elevating anymore. It is fascinating to think about this though. Before he battles Yamamoto, Loyd takes out Kenpachi with ease after Kenpachi defeated Loyd, meaning the Kenpachi we see in the first invasion is considerably weaker than base Yhwach at roughly, if we round up, 80% of his full power, and even weaker still than Yamamoto. Loyd beat Kenpachi into a comatose state with his bare hands, and Kenpachi even had his eye patch removed at the time as well. Honestly, that situation makes a lot more sense to me now, and it feels a lot better than just attributing Kenpachi's brutalization to some random Sternritter who was, for no apparent reason, monstrously powerful, among the upper echelon of Sternritter, which in a sense they kind of still are. I have to be honest, I love answers like these, but more than ever it feels like a recent decision on Kubo's part and probably not what he originally had in mind for the Yourself twins, even if it does clear a few things up. I mean, Kubo quite literally outlines their powers in chapter 510, and this is not what he says. Either way, both Loyd and Loyd are now absolutely, unequivocally 2 of the strongest Sternritter, and I'd still argue Loyd has the better ability overall. For both of them, though, it comes down to what they actually copy. What does copying one's mind or power actually mean? And here's another question too. If the twins are this absurdly powerful, or they can make themselves this absurdly powerful, then why couldn't one of them steal Yamamoto's Bankai to begin with? Yhwach explicitly says that the reason no one stole Yamamoto's Bankai except for him was because who else but Yhwach could control its immense power. But if Loyd is capable of mimicking 100% of Yamamoto's power in that moment, or Yhwach's power in that moment, then surely it makes sense to send him to the head captain, steal his Bankai immediately, and cause massive problems for the Soul Society. Either way, this is a very intriguing answer, and did what I think all good answers do, clear up some old mysteries while creating plenty of brand new questions too. And then finally, like last time, we'll end things on a more light-hearted answer. For some reason, Kubo was asked about Squad 9's flaw in the Hell chapter after it was blasted by Mayuri's eye lasers. The question reads as follows. What's going to happen to the floor of the Squad 9 building that Mayuri destroyed with his I-beam in the one-shot? Will Hisagi and Kensei have to pay for the repairs? And Kubo's reply is, they'll submit the repair bill to Squad 12, and if that doesn't work, they'll submit it to Squad 1, and if that doesn't work, Shuhei will probably have to pay for it. Honestly, I have no idea why someone cares about the floor in Squad 9's barracks and why they care enough to actually ask Kubo that question, but of course, this gets an answer. Never mind finding out Robert and BG9's shrifts. But I do think it's quite funny that Hisagi remains Kubo's punching bag to this day. I'm not really sure what the character did so egregiously wrong in Kubo's eyes to have his fortunes shifted so dramatically. Back in the Fate Karakura Town arc, Hisagi was a certified stone cold badass who skyrocketed in popularity thanks to his showings against both Findor and Tosen, but now this appears to be his lot in life. I guess it's a little bit interesting that the bill would go to Squad 1 if Mayuri declined to pay it. Is Kyoraku supposed to resolve these disputes, or does Squad 1 somehow have a duty to fork out for these things? Either way, I think we all know that Hisagi will end up paying for it in the end. Alright guys, but that's it for the video. I really hope you enjoyed it. Two very interesting answers this time, I think, about Senjumaru and the Loyd brothers. Let me know your thoughts on Kubo's answers down in the comments below. What is Senjumaru's mysterious past regarding this scientist-inventor group within the Gotei 13 potentially somewhere? And what do you think about the Loyd brothers' true power, the true nature of the Yourself Shrift? Could it have been used in a more effective way in the first invasion? Do please let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. But that's it guys, again, I really hope you enjoyed it, and as always I want to say a massive thank you to my Patreon supporters. Thank you guys so very much for continuing to support me, I really do appreciate it, it means the absolute world to me. If you like what I do here on the channel, you can also support me over on Patreon to get your name in the credits like this, and to get every video absolutely ad-free. Alright guys, till next time I'll catch you later, and I'll see you then.